side up the big future, that is for sure. Same can be said for Walter Calzoni as well, and Battistella, as Rob was saying, former under-23 World Road Race Championship back in Yorkshire. Seems like an eternity ago now. So much has happened since then, of course. And here is the peloton. Let's have a zoom in and see. Well, there we go. That's evidence of who is chasing. The man on the front representing Jumbo-Visma. Then we've got AG2R not too far away. UAE team Emirates as well, and another big team that were at or near the head of affairs earlier and are not represented up in front is Rail Premier Tech. So that is the situation on the front. But 20 seconds is the lead now for the three riders that are essentially trying to bridge across the gap and forcing Jumbo-Visma to try and pursue them. Interesting situation here that's unfolded, Rob, especially with the addition of Vlasov. This is a good fighting force, isn't it? Three key riders, three very dangerous riders indeed.
Yeah, Vlasov, who's never started this race before. He's been on the start list but hasn't started. Vlasov, I should say, 19th place. Sivakov has never started. Alaphilippe is on full debut himself. Never even had planned to ride this race. So he talked yesterday in the interview about discovering this race. It's not been a bad discovery so far. He's finding a leading role. Is he going to get the best Oscar at the end of the day, though? 21 seconds in the chase. 2:02 back from this group to them. 2:23 back. A minute to the main chasers. Now then. Oh, are they still working together? Has everything gone out of this? It might well have done, I don't know.
It's gone. I think they've yeah, there's the group. It's too much of a pursuit behind. It's certainly less than that. No, that's about right. It certainly wasn't 21 seconds.
Just look at the group then again, and the urgency had gone, hadn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And there's still a long way to go as well. We've got the two ascents of the climb that we were talking about earlier on. Domboro Solo, 1,600 meters at just under 8%, so a significant climb. And right now, there's no point in pursuing anything, given the fact there's still going to be a lot of relatively fresh legs, a lot of resource at the disposal of the likes of Jumbo-Visma. It's UAE team Emirates. I think it's a wise move, actually, that Vlasov, Sivakov and Alaphilippe have probably sat up. And no doubt, given what we've seen so far, they'll be eyeing other opportunities as we get deeper and deeper into this race.
End of the sharp descent is almost over. Approaching the final half century in terms of kilometres, and 2 long laps to mix things up. I know this corner well enough by now. Almost ready for a reabsorption of Alaphilippe, of Vlasov and of Sivakov. And there'll be one chasing group at roughly 2 minutes. Are we ready for more moves on the climb that's about to start again?
I think so, because the first ascent of the Molo Solo climb comes just as we enter the circuit, the slightly larger circuit, should I say. So that'll be an interesting one. And with that added a couple of digits in terms of gradient, we'll feel differently as well, because there's been a real rhythm to this race, that relatively flat start and then these circuits, and they'll be really bedded in, hardwired. In fact, the body will get used to the rhythm of a circuit that's around 15 minutes long. Then suddenly, and the climbs themselves, but suddenly you hit a climb that's 8%. It's a completely different proposition. But everybody be aware of that, of course. Save for the runners who haven't ridden this race before. They'll know it's coming, but they won't have ridden it. And as we look at...
I think this is the year that Roglic won.
Yeah, it's another... I was wondering, it looked remarkably similar, but yes.
On the right-hand side, going back to the Roglic victory in 2019. Already stole a march there. Coming into that final couple of turns, we've seen it barriered off today. Leonardo Basso had found himself at the front of the race then. But it was yet another typical Primož Roglic killer finish. In his own style, pumping away at those pistons and able to celebrate.
Well, he's done that a lot since then, hasn't he? Something that we've become all too familiar with. Just that acceleration. You saw then the way he attacked on the right-hand side, but just that explosivity that he has, that actually arguably he's got just better at over recent years. It's from a solid group at the end. Once he opens up the gap, that initial gap's so hard to close because he's able to sustain that effort. Such a dangerous. And quite often the best thing to do is just look the other way.
Accept your fate.
Indeed.
It looks as though fate is sorted for those breakers as we see yet another move off the front and another stretching out. This now is a look at what I think is a couple of years ago.
It's last year, I think.
Year now.
Yeah.
Again, apologies, these images are coming from the host broadcasters. We're not being told when they're being in, but yes, this is last year. This is Pogačar through the front.
He's got a right kick in that lad, isn't he, as well? It's a long sprint that was as well, wasn't it? Very long sprint. You forget. We don't often see it, do we? Pogačar from a big group winning. But he's clearly got that real turn of pace. Demonstrated it last year.
Of course, his big mate is Michael Matthews, isn't it? Maybe he's been practicing with him.
Certainly a good person to practice with, if that is indeed the case. They train a lot together, don't they, as well, down in Monaco. Training the lanes in and around Nice.
Just under 52 k's to go. Coming up to the finish line then. 2 long laps about to start now. There's obviously something happening behind, and that something is Jan Tratnik pulling things along with pace. And this is, I imagine now, Jumbo-Visma trying to take control for that eventual Primož Roglic moment that we saw a moment ago. If Jan Tratnik can keep this going, slowly bring it back, stop any attacks, that will make another Primož Roglic.
Exactly, and also when you look at the rider sat on the wheel of Tratnik, and it's tick from a team perspective. So now they've taken it up, knowing that we've got one of the hardest climbs of the day, the first of 2 ascents of the climb of the Morro Solo to come.
Breakaway of 5 coming up to the finish line again. And once they're through it, there will be 2 laps to go, but long ones. 25 kilometers per lap. And that addition of the new climb. It's worth mentioning that each lap contains this climb as well. Remember, half of the climb always coming after the finish line too. So Walter Calzoni through what will be the final kilometre when they get here in 2 big laps time.
Yeah, it's a nasty drag to the line. So not super steep, but just nagging, isn't it? Sort of 3-4% at its steepest. The gap continuing to come down. That relentless metronomic rhythm being set by Jan Tratnik, who was so good at this job. And right now the man behind him, Rafa Majka, doesn't need to do too much, but I think on the climb he might assist as well to try and keep that chain nice and tight. Maybe drop a few riders from the back as well, reduce this group, because I don't think, given what we've learnt about this race over the last few years and looking at the results, looking at the strength in depth here, this group certainly won't be this big last time up the climb, that's for sure.
This is where it changes. You talked about the drag. 350, 400 metres to go. It's then downhill to the finish. It's really a lightning fast finish.
Yeah, it certainly is. The finish opens up with about 300 metres to go, and that's one of the reasons I think we saw Pogačar open up so early, because if it's a fast finish, you can afford to open up early, especially if there's no wind in the face as well, and that's certainly what he did a couple of years, last year when he won it. Gap coming
This is where the race changes then for the breakaway, Matt, because you've got 5 riders out there. They've come across the finish. The next few kilometres will be the same before they then head out to the extra climb, make that figure of 8 that you talked about, taking all of the 3 valleys of Varese, and then they come back to the finish in Varese itself.
Yep, it won't be too long before they're actually on that new climb. They'll take a slightly different direction. And then the second part of the figure of 8 circuit, as you said, Rob, was the pre-existing circuit that they've covered already on 8 different occasions. But yeah, an interesting finale. Not one we normally get. Normally, the way that races based on circuits generally unfold or are designed is big circuits first, then smaller, and you end up on the smaller circuit. But this one, quite different, unorthodox in that regard.
A race with its own identity. It's a team with its own identities off the front yet again. EF Education Easy Post are not content with this Jumbo-Visma control at the front. You can understand why, given the probability of another dose of Roglification. As we mentioned the other day, our great mate Daniel Frieber's term for, well, just what Roglic does at the end of every race. Chavez was getting a little bit of help, not full committal. What it has done, though, is disrupt that work again that's being done by Tratnik. Israel Premier Tech sending a couple of riders to the front. Gregor Mühlberger's always there or thereabouts. Sivakov is having a look again for Ineos Grenadiers. This now is Quentin Paché.
Well, that was a Nick Schultz at the front there for the Israel Premier Tech team, just moving in. A very good climb.